In the cold silence of space, the war between humans and the Vorthians had ended in disaster for mankind. The humans had lost and their soldiers were captured, taken far away to the dark world of Zora Prime. It was a planet ruled by the mighty alien Queen Zalara, an 8-foot-tall ruler known across galaxies for her beauty and cruelty. Her voice could make armies bow, and her eyes could burn through the strongest hearts. To her, humans were nothing but weak creatures ruled by emotions, love and dreams. One evening, inside her great crystal throne room, the queen looked down from her golden seat. Before her stood a group of captured human soldiers. Tired and broken, among them was a man who stood differently, his back straight, his eyes calm. Captain Ryan Cole. The queen studied him for a moment, then smiled coldly. "So this is what humanity sends to fight me," she said, her tone full of pride. Soft hearts and small minds. The soldiers said nothing. But Ryan raised his head. "Maybe we are soft," he said quietly. "But softness is not weakness," the queen laughed, her voice echoing through the hall like thunder. "Love, compassion, emotion. These are the chains that make your kind weak," she said. "We Vorthians do not need such foolish things." Ryan looked at her without fear. "Maybe that's why you will never understand true power," he said. The queen's smile faded for a moment, but then she waved her hand, ordering her guards to take him away. As the humans were dragged out, Zalara's laughter returned, yet deep inside her heart, something strange had happened. No one had ever dared to speak to her like that before. And worse, she could not stop thinking about it. That night, as she stood by the great window of her palace, watching the twin moons rise, her mind replayed his words again and again. "Maybe that's why you will never understand true power," he had said. It was a strange feeling, one she could not name. Curiosity, maybe, or something more. The next day, she ordered her advisor to keep Ryan alive. "I want to study him," she said coldly, pretending it was only for science. But deep inside, she wanted to see him again. To hear his voice, days turned into weeks, and every night, Zalara would find herself thinking of the strange human locked beneath her palace. She told herself it was only research, but she could not lie to her own mind forever. Ryan, meanwhile, stayed calm in his small cell. He did not beg, he did not cry. He spoke to the guards politely, even when they mocked him. He told them stories of Earth, of oceans, rain, music, and laughter. Sometimes the guards would secretly listen, curious about this world full of emotion. And from the shadows, the queen would watch through her crystal mirrors. His words made her feel something warm, something dangerous, something alive. One night, unable to control her curiosity, the queen disguised herself in a cloak and went down to the prison. The guard stepped aside, thinking she was an officer. She stood quietly outside Ryan's cell, watching him through the energy field. He was awake, looking at the stars through a small crack in the ceiling. "You do not sleep," she said in a disguised voice. He smiled. "Hard to sleep when you miss the stars." Her heart skipped for a second, a strange pulse beating faster than usual. "Why do you humans care so much about things you can't control?" she asked. Ryan looked at her, though he could not see her face under the hood. "Because that's what makes us human," he said. "We care even when it hurts." The queen said nothing, but inside her heart trembled. It was the first time anyone had ever made her speechless. After she left, she stood in the hallway, her claws shaking slightly. She told herself it was nonsense, that the human had just confused her. But that night she could not sleep. Her dreams were filled with strange visions, the human's voice, the stars, the sound of laughter. For the first time in her long life, she felt lonely, truly lonely. She had conquered worlds, destroyed fleets, and ruled with power, but she had never felt warmth, never felt what this love really was. The next morning, her advisors noticed her silence. They asked if she wanted the human executed. The queen turned her gaze toward them, her voice low. "No," she said. "I have other plans for him." They did not dare to ask what she meant, but everyone in the palace felt something had changed. The queen who once laughed at human emotions now looked thoughtful, almost human herself, and deep within the dungeons of Zora Prime, Captain Ryan Cole smiled as if he knew something. He whispered softly to himself. "She laughed at love today," he said, "but tomorrow, love will make her remember she has a heart." Days passed slowly in the cold dungeons of Zora Prime. For most prisoners, time felt endless. But for Captain Ryan Cole, Each second was a chance to learn. He observed everything: the guards' movements, the strange blue light that powered his cell, the rhythm of alien footsteps above. Even in the heart of the enemy's empire, Ryan's mind stayed sharp and calm. The guards were cruel at first, mocking him, calling him soft blood, but he never shouted, never fought back. Instead, he spoke kindly, telling them stories about Earth. He spoke of oceans that stretched farther than sight, of cities glowing under the night sky, of music that made people cry and laugh. Some guards began to linger longer outside his cell, secretly listening. They had never heard of such beauty, such emotion. Even they started to wonder, how could weak creatures create something so powerful with only words? High above in her crystal palace, Queen Zalara watched him through her mirror screens. Her scientists told her they had nothing left to learn from the human, but she kept the feed on anyway, pretending it was for research every night. She found herself staring at that strange man, the way he looked at the stars through the ceiling cracks, the calm in his eyes even in chains. Something about him felt dangerous, not because of his strength, but because of his peace. One night, curiosity won over pride. Queen Zalara walked down into the lower chambers again. Wearing her black cloak, the air was thick with cold mist. The metallic scent of alien energy filled the halls. When she reached his cell, Ryan was awake, sitting quietly on the floor. He looked up as she approached, his gaze steady. "You again," he said softly, recognizing her voice from before. She hesitated. "You should fear me," she said. Her voice low but unsure. Ryan smiled faintly. "Fear and respect are not the same," he replied. "You have power, but that doesn't mean you have peace." Her breath caught in her throat. The words hit her like lightning. Peace. That word felt alien to her. Her entire life had been built on control, on victory, on never showing weakness, but now, this human spoke of peace as if it were something real, something she could touch. "Why do you speak to me as if I am equal to you?" she demanded. Ryan looked at her calmly. "Because everyone bleeds the same," he said. The silence between them grew heavy. For a moment, it felt as if the galaxy had stopped turning. Queen Zalara wanted to be angry. She wanted to crush him with her power. But instead she found herself asking, "Tell me more about this. Love you humans talk about?" Ryan leaned back, his voice gentle. "Love isn't just romance," he said. "It's what makes us risk our lives for others. It's why we forgive even when we are broken. It's why we keep fighting when everything is lost." Her eyes narrowed. "That sounds foolish," she said. He smiled. "Maybe, but foolishness is sometimes what keeps hope alive." For the first time in her reign, the queen was speechless again when she left the cell that night. Her heart was louder than her footsteps. She went to her private chambers, pacing back and forth. Her reflection in the crystal mirror looked the same, tall, strong and proud, but her eyes had changed. There was confusion, curiosity, and something else she could not name. The next morning, she ordered the guards to bring Ryan better food. She said it was for research purposes, but the guards whispered among themselves. No one had ever seen the queen care for a prisoner before. As days turned into weeks, their secret meetings continued. Sometimes she came disguised. Sometimes she sent messages through the guards. They spoke of human art, alien honor, and the weight of power. Each word became a bridge between two worlds that had once hated each other. But change is dangerous, especially in the halls of power. The queen's advisor, Lord Varric, began to notice her absence from council meetings. He saw the quiet look in her eyes, and he knew something was wrong. He ordered spies to monitor the dungeons when he saw the reports that the queen had been visiting the human alone. His eyes burned with fury. Meanwhile, Ryan began to see the queen differently. Behind her armor of pride, he saw someone lonely, someone who had carried too much power for too long. He began to care for her, not as a ruler, but as a soul trapped by her own greatness. And though he never said it, his voice softened when he spoke to her. He knew he was changing her, but he didn't yet know what it would cost. One night, the queen stood again at his cell. This time without disguise, the guards gasped, but obeyed her silent command to leave. She looked at him, her eyes shining like twin stars. "You make me feel things I do not understand," she said quietly. "I should hate you, yet I do not." Ryan stood slowly, his chains glowing in the dim light. "Maybe that's what it means to be alive," he said. The queen stepped closer, her hand trembling slightly. For a heartbeat, it seemed the distance between alien and human no longer existed. But from the shadows, unseen eyes were watching. Lord Varric smiled coldly as the recording orb floated beside him. Capturing everything, he whispered, the Queen has fallen, and soon she will fall completely. The screen faded to black, and the story of the alien Queen and her human prisoner was no longer a secret. But neither of them knew that love, once awakened, could no longer be controlled. The palace of Zora Prime had never been so silent. Rumors spread like wildfire through the silver halls. Whispers of the Queen and her human prisoner. Servants spoke behind closed doors. Soldiers avoided the Queen's gaze, and even the stars outside seemed to hold their breath. Queen Zalara had changed, and everyone could feel it. She no longer shouted commands or crushed her enemies with cold pride. Now she spent hours in her private chambers. Staring at the stars, the council demanded answers. But she gave none. Only Lord Varric, her oldest and most loyal advisor, knew the truth, or thought he did. He had seen the recordings, the Queen's eyes softening when she spoke to the human. He watched in disgust as she showed emotions no Vorthian ruler ever had. To him it was betrayal, and to their kind, to their history, to their blood. So he waited, watching, planning, deep below the palace. In the softly lit dungeon, Ryan's cell was no longer a place of punishment. The Queen had turned it into something else, a secret garden of stars and silence. Holographic lights floated across the ceiling. Creating images of Earth's sky, Ryan looked up every night, telling her about each constellation. And the Queen listened, truly listened, her heart softening with every word. Sometimes she laughed, a real, gentle laugh that surprised even her. Ryan would smile and say, "That's the sound of life." "Your Majesty?" She would roll her eyes, pretending not to care, but she did. She cared more than she wanted to admit one night. The Queen brought him food herself, something she had never done for any living being. Ryan looked at the silver tray and said, "Royal service, I must be special." She smirked. "Do not let it reach your head." Human. But inside her heart was beating fast, faster than it ever had before. The days passed, and the forbidden bond between them grew stronger. They spoke of dreams, of pain, of the meaning of freedom. Ryan told her how love made people brave. Zalara told him how power made people lonely together. They began to understand that maybe strength and love were not enemies. Maybe they were two sides of the same truth. But love in a palace built on fear never stays hidden for long. One stormy night, the Queen stood on her balcony, the sky flashing with alien lightning. Ryan stood beside her. No longer a prisoner, but something more. She looked at him and said softly, "When I first saw you, I thought you were weak." Ryan smiled faintly. "And now?" She turned to him, her silver eyes glowing. "Now I am not so sure who the weak one is." Their hands touched, a moment small and silent, but powerful enough to shake the stars for the first time in her life. Queen Zalara felt warmth that no sun could give. But deep within the palace walls, danger was already rising. Lord Varric had gathered the council, showing them the secret recordings. "The Queen has betrayed us," he said coldly. "She loves a human." The word love echoed like poison through the chamber. The council roared with anger. They demanded her removal. Her blood, her throne, meanwhile unaware of the storm above. Zalara and Ryan stood together under the rain. He looked at her and said, "If they find out, they'll come for both of us," she nodded. Her voice calm but fierce. "Let them come." Lightning flashed, and for a moment her tall figure looked almost human. Ryan saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before. Fear, but also love. The next morning, alarms echoed through the palace. Guards stormed into the lower chambers. Shouting orders, Ryan was seized, chains thrown around his arms. The Queen appeared a second later, her face pale with fury. "Release him," she commanded, her voice shaking the ground. But Lord Varric stepped forward, holding the recording orb. "Your Majesty," he said coldly, "the council has seen everything." He threw the orb to the floor, and it played the forbidden moment. The Queen and the human, their hands touching under the lightning. The hall fell silent, every guard frozen in disbelief. Queen Zalara looked at the faces around her. Soldiers she had trained, advisors she had trusted. Now all of them looked at her like a stranger. Her voice broke slightly as she said, "Love is not a crime." But no one listened. Lord Varric raised his arm. "Then love will be your downfall," he declared. In that moment, Zalara made a choice that would change the galaxy forever. She activated her hidden power, a storm of pure energy, white and gold. The chains around Ryan melted. The guards were thrown back and the palace walls trembled. She took his hand and whispered, "Run." Together they vanished into the storm, leaving behind a shattered throne and a dying empire. Far away, lightning painted the sky as two figures disappeared into the unknown. The queen who once mocked human love had chosen it over her crown, and for the first time she was truly free. The night wind screamed across the black mountains of Zora Prime. Lightning split the sky like a blade of white fire. Inside the ruined palace, the once proud banners of the Vorthian Empire hung in tatters. The queen who ruled galaxies was now a fugitive. Running from her own people, Solara and Ryan fled through the storm, the air thick with static and smoke. Her long silver cloak was torn, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Ryan followed close, breathing hard but never letting go of her hand. Behind them, the sound of engines roared. The royal guards were coming. They ran across the cliffs until they reached the edge of the storm field, a wild zone of raw energy that twisted time and space. "Once we cross this," Ryan said, shouting over the thunder. "They won't follow." The queen looked at him, her face streaked with rain and light. "Then we cross," she said, her voice fierce and trembling at the same time. They stepped into the storm and the world exploded into light. The energy burned their skin, pulled at their bodies, tore at their memories. For a moment, Ryan thought he would die, but Solara wrapped her arms around him. Her power flared, pure white energy bursting from her body. The storm bent around them, as if afraid of her will, and then silence. They woke hours later on the other side, a barren wasteland of glass and dust. The queen's armor was cracked. Her crown shattered. Ryan helped her stand. "You saved me," he whispered. She looked at him, her lips trembling. "No, Ryan, you saved me long before this." For a moment, neither spoke, the world around them forgotten. There was only the sound of their hearts and the wind. Far away in the royal chambers of Zora Prime, Lord Varric stood before the High Council. The hollow screen showed footage of the Queen's escape. He bowed low, his voice calm but full of poison. "She has abandoned her duty," he said. "She has chosen a human over her people." The council's voices rose in anger. "She must be hunted," said one. "She must be erased," said another. Varric smiled thinly. "I will find her myself," he said, "and bring her back, and dead or alive." Back in the wastelands, Solara and Ryan found shelter in an old outpost. It was silent, full of dust and forgotten machines. Ryan lit a small fire with broken wires for the first time. The queen sat beside him, not as a ruler, but as a woman. She stared into the flickering light. "I do not understand it," she said softly. "My people call me a god, yet I cannot stop thinking of you." Ryan smiled tiredly. "Maybe gods need love too." Her eyes shimmered, not with power, but with tears. "No," she whispered. "They told me love was weakness. But I see now. It's the only thing strong enough to change me." Outside, the wind carried faint sounds, engines. "Soldiers, death." The queen turned sharply, her instincts flaring. "They found us," she said, rising to her feet, her energy glowing faint blue. Ryan stood beside her, picking up a plasma rifle from the ground. "No more running," he said. She nodded. "No more." The battle came like fire. Drones descended from the sky. Soldiers in black armor surrounded the outpost. Solara unleashed her power, waves of light tearing through the storm. Ryan fought beside her, his body moving with purpose, protecting her with every step. He was only human, but in that moment, he fought like something more. Lord Varric stepped through the smoke, his voice sharp as steel. "You have doomed us all, Solara," he shouted. "You chose a weak creature over your empire." She turned, her eyes glowing like suns. "I chose life," she said, her voice shaking the air. "I chose love." Varric raised his weapon, firing a beam of dark energy. Ryan moved faster than thought, jumping in front of her. The beam struck him in the chest, throwing him to the ground. Time stopped. The queen fell to her knees beside him, her hands glowing. "Ryan, no," she whispered. "Stay with me." He smiled weakly. "Guess love really is dangerous." Tears streamed down her face, falling onto his armor, glowing as they touched. Her power surged out of control, light spreading across the sky like a new sun. Varric screamed as his body dissolved in pure energy. The soldiers fled, blinded by the light, and when it ended, the wasteland was silent again. Ryan lay still in her arms, his heartbeat fading. She pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "You gave me your heart, and now I will carry it forever." She stood, holding his body as the dawn broke over Zora Prime. The queen who had mocked human love now stood reborn in its name. Her empire was gone, her crown destroyed, but in her heart lived a new power, one that no weapon could kill. The war was over, but peace had not yet begun. The once mighty Vorthian Empire lay in silence, its cities empty, its stars dim. Queen Zalera had vanished into legend. Some said she was dead. Others whispered she had fled to the far edge of the galaxy. Only a few knew the truth. She had chosen exile. Far from the world she once ruled, in a quiet valley on a distant planet, a small home stood under the twin suns. Inside, the air was filled with the soft hum of machines and the gentle sound of laughter. Zalara sat beside a small cradle made from crystal and silver. Inside it lay a child, half human, half Vorthian, her skin glowing faintly blue under the light. The child's name was Hope. Every time the child opened her eyes, Zalara saw both worlds staring back at her. One eye blue like the ocean Ryan once described, the other silver like her own. The queen smiled softly, tracing the baby's tiny fingers. "She has your smile, Ryan," she whispered, her voice trembling. Outside, the wind carried the scent of rain, and the stars shimmered like distant memories. Years passed quietly. The queen built a new life far away from crowns and thrones. She grew food with her hands, built walls with her strength, and watched her daughter take her first steps. Sometimes, when the wind blew across the valley, she would hear Ryan's voice in the breeze. He would whisper the same words he said before he died. "Love will remake the universe." One evening, as the sun set behind the red mountains, Hope ran to her mother, her small hands glowing with energy. "Mother," she said, "the flowers are singing." Zalara looked at her in surprise, then smiled. The child's gift was unlike anything in the galaxy. She could feel life, not just see it. The air around her shimmered with warmth, and wherever she walked, the ground bloomed. Her power came not from rage or control, but from pure emotion, pure connection. Love itself flowed through her veins. But the past has a way of finding even those who hide. One night, a ship landed near the valley, dark, silent, carrying the emblem of the old empire. From it stepped a group of Vorthian hunters led by a scarred commander. Their orders were simple: capture the queen and the child. They believed the child was an abomination, a threat to their kind. As they approached the house, the air grew heavy, the lights dimmed. Zalara sensed them before they arrived. She stood at the doorway, her eyes calm but bright. "You should not have come here," she said softly. The commander sneered. "You betrayed your people, Zalara. Now you will face justice." Behind her, little Hope peeked out, her small eyes glowing faintly. Zalara whispered, "Stay inside, my love." But the child shook her head. "They are angry. They are hurting." Her words were innocent, but filled with power. The ground began to tremble. Light spreading from her tiny hands, the soldiers fired their weapons, but the beams vanished before reaching her. The air turned golden. The flowers outside burst into radiant energy. The child lifted her hands and whispered, "No more hate." A wave of pure light swept through the valley, not killing, not burning, transforming. The soldiers dropped their weapons, their eyes wide as warmth filled their hearts. They saw memories of their homes, their families, their forgotten emotions. Some fell to their knees. Others began to cry. Zalara watched in awe, tears streaming down her face. Her daughter had done what she never could, ended the cycle of hate. The commander stepped forward, trembling. "What is she?" he whispered. Zalara smiled softly. "She is what you feared most, a child born from love, not war." When the light faded, the soldiers left quietly, no longer enemies but lost souls seeking peace. The valley returned to silence, the stars shining brighter than before. Zalara knelt beside her daughter, holding her close. "You changed them," she whispered. "You changed everything." Hope looked up, her voice soft. "Like Father said, love is stronger than fear." The queen smiled through her tears. "Yes, my little one, stronger than any empire." Years later, stories spread through the galaxy again. Whispers of a peaceful world where an alien queen and her child lived among humans. They called the child the Bridge of Worlds, and some said when she laughed, the stars themselves listened. On one quiet night, Zalara stood outside, looking at the sky. She closed her eyes and spoke softly. Ryan, our daughter will build what we could only dream. The wind answered with a gentle whisper. His voice carried through the stars. And you, my queen, have already changed the universe, the queen smiled. Her heart full above her, 2 stars aligned, one blue, one silver, glowing together like a promise, and in that endless sky, the story of love between a human and an alien became legend, a tale that would be told for generations. How the queen who once mocked human love gave birth to the child who united the stars,